up ahead. Affirmative 612.
Time once again for the Wealthy Pilots podcast. And Scott, I mean, it makes sense, my friend. You got the shirt. Might as well talk a little Artemis today. Very cool thing going on. And we're going to do some financial lessons we could learn from the Artemis mission. So might as well jump on this cool bandwagon. How you doing, buddy? You doing all right?
Yeah, man, it was good. Just got back from spring break with the family, so fighting a little cold here. Just back in Ohio, it's 45 degrees. Instantly starts kicking in here. But yeah, so I was golfing, and the course I was at is about 45 minutes away from Cocoa Beach and Cape Canaveral and the launch site and all that. And so I saw a group of people around. I said, "Hey, what are you guys looking at?" They're like, "Oh, the rocket launch is going off." And I had no clue that it was a lunar mission. I just hadn't been following it all. And so, they said, yeah, it should be right over there. I happened to look up and it was a little bit overcast and just instantly you could see it, projecting right through with the huge backblast coming out of it. It was awesome. And, you start looking at it, you're like, man, it's hard to believe there's 4 humans on the front of that thing getting hurled up to not only space, but to the moon, further than anyone else has ever gone. So
isn't that wild? It's pretty trippy, that's for sure. Takes me back. Obviously, not as great a memory, obviously, but we were in class, way back in the day with the Challenger launch. Yeah, we were watching that stuff live, right? And Gen Xers, we saw that unfortunate incident happen live, right? But yeah. Pretty cool, pretty basic technology that they're doing. So we thought we'd have a little fun and kind of tie some, it's flight, right? I mean, they're pilots.
yeah. There's at least one pilot on there, and it's
right.
Cool. When you go back and you look at the old souvenir shirt, they start breaking down all the systems that go into it, right?
Nice.
I mean, the pilot and the teams and that little itty bitty tip up top, and you start thinking man, this is a huge undertaking to make this happen again compared to, hey, we're launching a rocket into satellite, so to speak. So,
yeah, no, it's pretty cool. It's definitely very cool. Now, obviously, it's got the world intrigued while a lot of other things are going on too. But let's do our lessons here. Let's do lesson number 1 here. Let's talk about. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I think, one of the biggest takeaways as I looked at it is, obviously nothing they're doing is ad hoc. It's planned out, to the nth degree. And even when you look at one of the things I think is a takeaway is, when you think of modeling, right? I mean, modeling, when you look at what NASA does in their mission planning, I mean, and all the mathematics that they're running, to figure out the time it's going to take to get around the moon and the orbit and reentry, and let alone all the engineering behind the whole system. But to me, more about the modeling of the journey, and where they get that level of precision of, exactly where in the ocean the pod's going to come back to eventually, to have all that planned out. It just got me thinking about, there's a lot of tools out there that a lot of people do not take advantage of to help model what their retirement is going to look like. So that was one thing I was thinking about it as I was looking at these 4 astronauts getting hurled into space. I'm like, imagine them doing that without knowing the full plan. Hey, we're just going to go out there and we're going to kind of trust that things will work out okay. Obviously.
And think about the technology difference. I mean, they still planned it obviously to an nth degree way back when, right? With the first missions, in space back in the 60s. But can you imagine the difference? Some of those guys, if they could see some of the things now, like just the technology and the planning and the prep.
Yeah, I mean, you got more technology here than you did in the last.
Then you did, yeah, for sure. So anyway,
but yeah, I mean, so that was one part. When I think of modeling too, what does financial modeling mean, right? Okay. So hey, we're going to model what your cash flows look like between now and when you retire. How much of that's going to go to taxes? How can we drive efficiency there? What is it going to look like if taxes go up or if taxes go down? I doubt they're going to go down, but that's a different story.
Right.
And start to model out what the future is going to look like, and then take that financial model and do different scenario planning off of it. What if I delay Social Security? What if I have a down market, right? Well, if the person that retired in 2000 and then entered the dot-com crash followed by the global financial collapse in 2007 and 8, had a much different retirement than somebody that retired in 2015 into, pretty much an 11-year bull market. Mm-hmm. And so, those two scenarios are very different outcomes for the retiree in terms of what they can spend
True.
without running out of money. And, to look at that and say, well, I have tools at my disposal to model that out and figure it and make sure that I'm saving enough for some of those less than ideal scenarios. They exist today and we should take advantage of them. And many people do not. So that was that was probably my biggest takeaway of just like, hey, the modeling aspect of it, and not that the investing world's a little bit different, obviously, than a space flight, but
sure, yeah,
we're not going to get the precision is not going to be as precise as what they're working on, but getting things directionally correct and having contingency plans built in, is very, very powerful. And it brings a level of confidence and peace to the financial plan that, hey, I'm just going to wing it, does not bring.
Yeah. And if you think about pilots in general, right? I mean, obviously they don't rush through a checklist just to save time. Shouldn't do the same thing with your portfolio, right? You want to have those systems in place and you want to be, measured and calculated for sure.
Yeah. I mean, even when you think of this entire journey, it's not just the launch and the mission. I mean, how many years has the lead up been to this? The resources going into it, right? I mean, it's not an ad hoc, willy-nilly decision. I mean, it's a body of work, but our careers and our saving and our investing careers are much the way when we accumulate wealth. I mean, it's very much, purposeful, intentful, and the people that do it with purpose intent, tend to have significantly different outcomes than those that are willy-nilly with it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's one takeaway. The second one, right, we were going to talk about is small course corrections, which over the course of your lifetime, we should be doing, right? I mean, I'm sure that the computers and the people on board are, constantly doing little tweaks along the way. And that's the same thing as building a plan and adjusting a strategy.
Yeah. Right. I mean, when you look at, statistical analysis of any data set, you have a margin of error. And there's something we call statistical power. And when you have statistical power, it means like something is powerful enough that it makes a statistical difference. And there's aspects to that in physics, in flight, and there's a lot of times, I mean, with our pilots, right? I mean, they know that huge changes in what they're doing in the cockpit are not normally what's needed to get to where they're going to go. And so, we definitely believe, especially in the investing world, that small corrections, small tweaks compounded over time. And again, compound interest is really one of the rare things that we're able to get as investors, but those small things compounded over time make a big difference. So if we can get a little bit more money over into the tax-free bucket, if we can save a little bit of taxes here or there, if we can build a more tax-efficient portfolio, if we can get a little bit more investment performance, if we can reduce fees or expenses, those are the kind of things that those small course corrections compounded over time. Even now, I know we're going to do an episode soon on market volatility. During seasons of extreme market volatility, many times I would recommend there are changes we need to make, but they're not drastic. We want to do some slight rebalancing. Maybe we're going to tweak where we're putting our cash, things of that nature. But those small course corrections over time is really what's going to drive a larger compounding effect with time on your side. So generally speaking, we're saying, hey, we don't want to have huge, drastic reactions to what's going on around us. We want to have slight course corrections to adjust what we're doing while we're kind of going through our investing careers.
Yeah. And it's not nearly as obviously dramatic as space flight, right? But I mean, the same kind of idea holds true that if you miss the mark too early, right, they're not missing by inches, they're missing by miles at that point, right? We don't want to do the same thing in our retirement journey. And granted, that's a totally different animal, but you still want to try to limit, you can make mistakes, but I think as you get closer to retirement, that time horizon shorter, making those mistakes could then change to that from inches to miles kind of analogy.
The sooner you get some of these things in place, like a rebalancing strategy, building tax-free wealth, being allocated the right way, being allocated aggressive enough, typically, the sooner you get those things in place, typically the better off you're going to be, right? If you're trying to chase in your 50s or 60s, chase that, hey, you're never out of the fight. You're never too late to the party,
Sure.
I should say. But the earlier you are, the better off you're going to be long term.
Well, Scott, that's the third lesson really is build systems, right? They have systems in place. They don't wing missions. They have systems in place and they have redundancy systems and redundancy systems on top of that, right? So we want systems in place to your point right there.
Yeah, I mean, I think of like the Apollo 13 movie way back when.
Oh, yeah, fantastic.
A classic, right? And when they're going down the line and, they're like, communications.
Right. Yep.
Yes.
Capcom. Right. Yep.
So everyone's like, go, 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 go. And I think, again, just kind of, having some fun to tie it back to finances. It is like when I look across and I say, like, what are the systems I have in my financial life? We have investments. That's a very important part of it, but it's just one point.
But a lot of people over rely on that too, right? The 401, we put sometimes there's too much focus on it.
I mean, many times we focus on the thing we have the least control over.
Right.
And, I think it's a wrong area to focus. That's a very important area to get right. But
sure,
once we
absolutely.
get it allocated right, we got a lot of work to do in a lot of different areas. But investments, savings. Am I saving in the right areas? Am I saving the right amount? Planning. Yep. Are we a go there? Have we done those financial models we're talking about?
You need somebody sitting there going, tax strategy. Are we a go or no go tax strategy? We're a go.
Tax strategy. Contingency planning, hey, if I get hurt, if I lose my income, if I die early, if something happens to my spouse, if somebody gets disabled, contingency planning. Are we a go or no go? Estate planning. When I die, do we have things organized? When my spouse dies, do we have things organized? Do we understand what happens to our income plan? Yeah. Those are all things that, absolutely. And that portion of it, I would absolutely say if you're later in your career, that is vital. If you're over 60, over 55 or 60, you really want to make sure we have all these ducks in a row and where all systems go for retirement. And then that's going to make you feel not just, hey, do I have a good nest egg, but do we got everything go for launch? And
I imagine most pilots would, given the option, they don't want to take a transatlantic flight with just like one instrument working, right? They want them all working. Right.
I would think so. So,
right. So, and you just don't want one thing working in your finances, right? You don't want to just have that 401k being the one big item. I guess at the end, right, to Scott, to kind of close this up, NASA didn't just get back to the moon by guessing, right? They took their time. Who knows how long they were building on this idea, right? And planning. But I think again, it's a dramatic switch, certainly. But I mean, this is just as big to us individually. This is 40 years of work that you're building up to now be done. You're not probably going to go back to the drawing board and start over, most likely, right? So you got to get it right.
In our airline, it's a great career. They have busted their tails to either through military service or through investing tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in their own proficiency. Yeah. And then eating gravel at certain jobs to get to where they've gotten. I mean, there's a lot of sacrifice to get to where a lot of these guys are.
Yeah. Great point.
Now, and then when you get there, you might have people out there that are saying, oh, that must be nice or whatever. Well, yeah, it must be nice. But if you want to do what I do, then you should have done what I done. And,
and don't eat gravel.
Yeah, exactly. And, I mean, it's a lot of sacrifice to get there, but once you're there and you're making the money, man, honor that sacrifice with a really, really good system to get the finances taken care of, the 401k taken care of, all systems go.
There you go.
Set yourself up for a great career financially, and then ultimately a great retirement financially. That should be very well deserved.
Well, I know they're not just completely drifting out there. There's a plan, but we don't want to drift into or out of wealth, right, from a mistake. So making sure we got the right strategy in place to retire, systems in place, to Scott's point, if you need some help. We thought we'd have, again, a little fun here with the Artemis conversation. Scott's rocking the Artemis shirt there. So if you got some questions, need some help about your strategy or lack thereof, or you want to make sure that you're a go or no go for, retirement, then get yourself onto the calendar, have a conversation. We'll have links in the show descriptions below. Subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and all that good stuff. And Molly will jump on here in a second and tell you how to get that retirement toolkit, if that's a great way to start, which it is a good way to start. That's a nice little low-hanging fruit that you can pick up and get some information and get started. Scott, my friend, thanks for breaking it down. Thanks for hanging in here. I'm glad you're feeling better. Hopefully you can continue to improve.
All right. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
All right, bud. We'll talk to you next week here on the Wealthy Pilots Podcast with Scott Osborn.
Hey everyone, real quick, if you haven't grabbed Scott's Financial Flight Control Toolkit yet, now is the time. This is packed with tons of helpful resources and tools like this, Scott's book, The Dichotomy of Wealth, which is a pilot's guide to maximizing wealth and cash flow in retirement. You also get access to some great guides like this one, Advice Matters, which breaks down 4 key ways a good financial advisor can help you boost your returns over time. And guides like this one on the pitfalls of emotions when it comes to investing, and this one on the HCM byline investment strategy, and more. So if you'd like your very own Financial Flight Control Toolkit, just click the link in today's show description, and Scott and the team will be happy to get one sent your way at absolutely no cost to you.
Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.